Hey everyone, welcome to Clickheads. I'm Eddie the Chump, and today we're going to be tackling one of the biggest discussions going on in the Valorant community right now, and that's the current status of the operator. There's a lot of grumblings from pros, high-level ranked players, respected streamers, and more saying that the op is OP. And while we understand where everyone is coming from, we don't think it's as straightforward as the weapon itself being too strong. There are multitudes of factors that go into this, and we're going to do our best to unpack these in an effort to better understand why this perception exists, whether it's true, and what could be done about it. With all that said, let's begin. EU versus NA connections. Right, so let's start off with some fairly frank honesty. Valorant is a very connection-dependent game, and when the connection is fairer and Pika's advantage is reduced to manageable levels, then the op can really look incredibly strong. However, this is not the context that we on this channel play in. The connection variance is much higher in this region, as in EU, than it is in NA, with players on high pings at a distinct and clear Pika's advantage in a lot of scenarios. We have spoken about this before, but it really does factor into the op debate. In our experience, players on high ping can just swing out and delete an op player holding an angle almost at whim. Just take a look at this clip from Liam. This Jet player is on over 100 ping, and they can peek Liam, keep moving, and headshot him through the box before he has any reasonable chance to react, as if it's nothing. I want to make this clear, this is quite commonplace in EU. The higher up the ranks you go, the more punishing holding angles gets, and that really factors into our perspective. In NA, it's a different story. When at high ping, you are at the disadvantage. Just watch Asu or Mendo play when they're West Coast playing on an East Coast server. It's almost the complete opposite. This is presumably the case because of some infrastructural reasons. Fewer servers, more spaced out in EU, massive connection disparities, and more. Far from the op being dominant here, what's actually OP is wide swinging whenever you peak. So much so that it has changed the way the game is actually played over here. We all play at high diamond and Immortal, by the way, the exact tier where ops are becoming a real problem in the US, yet in our matches, it's not the clear determining factor. Yes, ops get used in the EU, obviously. Yes, they can be dominant too, but this whole just buy 3 ops on defense forehead thing isn't a thing, and it makes comparison a little bit difficult. Don't get me wrong, Liam and I have played double op and been able to completely shut down pushes, but that's the exception rather than the rule, and if the weapon was truly overpowered, then scrubs would be able to use it and do far better than with anything else. Over here in EU at least, that is not the case. However, this does not mean that the debate is over. We are collectively seemingly in an op meta. Even devs such as Morello are talking about it quite loosely. But just like them, we're more interested in the why than the easy answers. So let's move on. Not enough utility. So I want to begin this section by playing a clip of Hiko talking about the op from his stream. He has made this argument before, but I want to refresh everyone's memory.
Yes, I think one of the reasons why the op is so good right now is there's not enough utility throughout a round to counter ops, especially when you get kind of stuck in a rut where you kind of have to decide when to push and you have to go kind of fast. I just think like the way the game is and the way the utility is, on one hand, you need to waste utility to be able to take map control, to be able to default, to be able to, get the enemy's utility out. But the problem is, if the enemy team also counters utility when you throw your utility and they time out the round, eventually both teams run out of abilities, right? Like you run out of Brim smokes. The only thing that kind of lasts are Omen smokes because it recharges. And I guess Viper too, but it's kind of hard to throw good Viper smokes. And nobody really plays Viper. So you run into a scenario where in the world where you're playing attack and the other team's playing defense and both teams have no money, the ops are what rules, right?
So I think Hiko is actually right. I don't think there are enough agents that people pick, at least, with utility that can deal with ops very well. This is a complex issue. Hiko is also right about the style of the current meta, because, as Hiko says, you have to use parts of your utility to do simple things, like take map control on a default. The pace of rounds can really slow down a lot. There is commonly a phase of utility exchange that happens between two teams who know how to play, whereby one is taking space and the other is countering that momentum depending on which side they're on. Many high-level rounds play out like Na'Vi from 2014, and that's not the first time I've made that joke. 30 seconds left, nobody dead, very little utility left to push ops off their favoured spots. At the level Hiko plays at, this is a problem, and this is the fairest criticism of the game and one of the biggest reasons why ops can get a bit out of hand. Let's compare Counter-Strike to Valorant for just a moment. The AWP actually has some nerfs to it that the Valorant AWP doesn't, but I want to talk about utility specifically first. In Counter-Strike, every player has access to a smoke, molly or HE grenade and 2 flashes on a full buy. That is a huge amount of stuff that can help push AWPers out of their comfort zones, and that's before we even get to this little nugget of truth. There are currently no CS-style pop flashes in Valorant. The closest you can get is to Phoenix flash out of a smoke a la drone from TSM, but even then, that isn't that strong. A pop flash is an AWPer's worst nightmare, where a flash blinds you and you get no warning, no time to react, and that's it, you're probably dead. AWP players in Valorant don't have to worry about that anywhere near as much. Riot have said that they don't like the idea of unreactable utility, as that removes counterplay, which is true, but it's also partly why AWP players on good connections in NA can farm players trying to peek them. Even a Phoenix flash has such a short duration, an AWP player can know the timing of players swinging behind it and shoot blind if they're pre-aimed on a common spot. It's predictable and exploitable. Sure, when you get pop flashed in CS, you can do a similar play, but if you're full blind, that lasts forever, and your enemies don't have to peek instantly after using one. Plus, there's like 4 flashes in Valorant. Phoenix, which is good but has limitations, Breach, which is stronger but even more obvious and requires a convenient surface, Reyna's Leer, which can be potent, but if you're too close to the blinded player, they can see you anyway, and Omen's, which is great but has some of the same drawbacks as Reyna's. In Counter-Strike, there's a possibility of 10 flashes per round. Think about that for a moment. Let that sink in. Oh, and by the way, those same players can carry 5 smokes between them. There's also a player choice element at play here. When TSM ran Sageless on Ascent against T1, everyone was like, why did they do that? Sage is a must pick, etc, etc. But they ran double controller instead with Omen and Brim, and that's because neither on their own is sufficient against top tier op play. You do not want to use Brim smokes just to take space, by the way. They're too valuable for executes. So you use Omen smokes for line of sight denial to get the space you need, and then Brim to take a site. If we are truly in an op meta, then running double controller will have to be a lot more common. But does that mean that the weapon is too good? I have a hard time convincing myself of that, and without being a massive dick, a lot of the games where an op dominates on a stream or just in ranked that I've witnessed is because everyone is solo queue and has just picked like 4 duelists and Sage. Of course you're going to get farmed. That would happen in CS2 at any rank above MGE if you never bought or threw any smokes or flashes. Yes, Hiko is right. There isn't enough utility to handle ops at the very highest levels, but that's also because we're still hungover from the stall meta. Rushes don't really happen with the same frequency as they do in Counter-Strike, simply because stall is much stronger in Valorant despite repeated nerfs. The clock runs down because almost every comp has Sage and Cypher in it, and playing around their stuff without dying takes a long time and resources. And I'm sorry about this, but one area where I don't align with Riot's thinking is in not having flash utility that is very hard to react to. Not as a general design philosophy, I think they're right, but flashes in this game are for the most part pretty weak. I've discussed with devs personally how there's like 4 ways to throw a flash in CS, yet Phoenix only gets left or right short range curveball. I don't think that's good enough, and it is partly why ops don't fear much apart from missing their own shots. Breach particularly, as an initiator, is struggling at the moment, both in terms of pick rate and in raw data. The fact his flash is so telegraphed and has to have a surface to work limits it. He's supposed to be an agent that flashes teammates in, but a smart op player can avoid the flash a lot of the time. If he catches buffs or a new way to, I don't know, just throw a flashbang in a traditional sense and pop flash op players, he'll be a must pick and a good answer to them. But I don't know if Riot would do that. I'd like it if he could just throw his flash in the air, with a charge time affecting the distance and have it detonate mid-air, kind of like a variant of Leer, but I'm not a game designer, so what do I know? Economy meta. Right, this is going to be a bit of a shorter section, but I don't feel like Valorant's economy system is quite punishing enough. It's pretty easy to manage actually, and that's by design. But it's also the reason why buying multiple ops on defense isn't as risky as it could be. You can wreck your economy by doing that, but once you win like 2 rounds with double op, you can at least buy 1 op without concern concern when you do lose a round. A lot of people say just increase the price of ops, then they'll be less prevalent, or even more extreme, just limit teams to only one op max. I'm generally against stuff like that, as I think it's a little bit too far down the line of we tell you how to play our game, peasants. And at the top level, as Hiko notes, it wouldn't really change what needs to be changed. The power of the op comes from not being able to contest lines of sight late round at the pro tier, and for the rest of us, it's a bit too easy to buy and keep buying ops on defense. Tagging. Now, a lot of people won't like to hear this, but any nerfs to tagging also helps op players thrive. I hate the strength of tagging at times in matches. It feels like I'm rooted to the floor by a pistol across the map, but if an op player can get away with not dying from being tagged and escape more often, that's going to make them more effective, even when peaked by multiple opponents at once, which is a traditional answer to a lone sniper in a power position. We have to be very careful what we wish for, as what can appear like separate issues in a metagame can in fact be linked in ways that we can't foresee. What would you even nerf? In this final section, I'll talk about the most common suggestions for op nerfs and discuss them a little bit. I'll start by asking a question. What place in the meta do most players think is appropriate for one of the most expensive weapons in the game? Do you guys think the game even warrants an op? And if so, how hard should it be to use while still being so expensive? A lot of people call for its strafe speed while scope to be reduced to more like the CS op, but to that I'd say, how many strafe out peaks do you pull off with the op on attack? If it was genuinely too good, ops would be used on attack way more aggressively than they are. Peaking with an op is actually difficult. It's why only elite players like Wardell can do it reliably against top level players. Would a nerf to the strafe speed even affect defense sided op users? Not really. Some players are calling for the scope noise to be audible, just like it is in Counter-Strike. But again, does that really help you when you have to peek a long line of sight with no utility? No, it doesn't. It would help in clutches, sure, but this change would be the least impactful I can think of to the context that feels the most oppressive right now. And what about making it more expensive? Again, it might make them less prevalent to a certain extent, but it doesn't change the power level when they are utilized correctly. After all this discussion, this is what I actually believe to be true. Valorant needs more flashes, and the flashes it does have need to be better. The op is overpowered slightly at the moment because of the meta around it, not the weapon itself. Because the pace of the game is quite slow when played out optimally, ops function better as a result. When there are more agents and more utility options, it won't feel like such a big problem. In the meantime, picking Omen and Brim and an agent with a flash is definitely a way to try and curtail a rampant sniper. I can't stress how good I think Omen is for solo queue players. The agent gets a bad rap because bronzes in every chat and comment section are like, why didn't you just teleport into your own smoke and shoot everyone in the back for your Reddit montage? But really, he is the best anti-op agent available. Imagine a character with a flash and smokes. Oh wait, that's exactly what he is. I know this video will stir up a lot of strong feelings, and feel free to give your feedback in the comment section below. Just know, we understand our opinions are just that. We don't get everything right, and that's not how we see ourselves. So let's try to not be dicks to each other. And that's about it today. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you like the content on this channel, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you get notified when we upload. Also, check out our Facebook stream. We are no lifing Valorant over there, and it would be great to see some of you in the chat. Until next time.